What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Gage, and today I'm excited to share with you my pure Shaddoll deck profile. No Aleister, no Invocation, nothing like that. Just Shaddolls with some tech cards thrown in there as well. I'm excited to show this off, so if you're a fan of this type of content, please like and subscribe. It will mean a lot to me. And once the deck profile is completed, I'll go ahead and show you some of those combos. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right into it. To start off, I am playing the 1 Armageddon Knight as well as 2 Mathematician. These are some of the strongest normal summons the deck has at its disposal. This could be a 3rd Mathematician, which does give it a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can send to the grave. However, Armageddon Knight is still able to send some of the main Shaddoll monsters like Squamata and Hedgehog, and therefore is still a powerful option as well. Not to mention it's a dark, so it is an allure target if necessary, and it's a level 4 for some rank 4 plays. So I do like playing the one of, and yeah, this is the best normal summon that you have at your disposal, and this is what allows you to go into some crazy combos that I'll show you later on. I'm also playing 2 copies of Gale Dogra. This is actually a tech that I saw from my man Cali Effect. He showed off how if you play Gale Dogra, some hands that may be bricks may actually work out in your favor after all, because Gale Dogra can send a monster from the extra deck to the graveyard at the cost of 3,000 life points. So what you could do is send App Cologne, and App Cologne's able to search any Shaddoll card, which is really, really good. If you are missing the fusion, you can go ahead and add the fusion. If you're missing a light target, you could go ahead and search for Kaios, which I am playing in the deck. Gale Dogra is actually a really good normal summon and can help you play in hands that otherwise wouldn't be playable. Alright, and I am playing 3 copies of Shaddoll Squamata, the best Shaddoll. It is a rank 4 dark type, so it's an allure target, and it can be used to make cards like Abyss Dweller. And all of the Shaddoll cards have 2 main effects, one that you gain off of flip summoning, and the other that you gain when it's sent to the graveyard. For Squamata, you can flip it, target a monster you're on the field, and destroy it, so it's got a man-eater bug-like effect. And then when it's sent to the grave by card effect, such as the Armageddon Knight, or the Mathematician, or even your Shaddoll Fusion cards, then you can send a Shaddoll card from the deck to the graveyard, and that's any card. So if you need to send a Hedgehog to continue stacking the grave and continuing on with your combos to search for another Shaddoll, you could do that. If you need to send a spell or trap to then grab off of Construct later on, you could do that as well. This is easily one of the strongest Shaddolls that you have at your disposal, and that's why I'm running it at 3 copies, and of course it's also an allure target. I am playing 3 copies of Hedgehog, which is another fantastic Shaddoll monster. When it's flipped, you can add a Shaddoll spell or trap from the deck to your hand, so of course if you need to grab yourself the Shaddoll Fusion for a follow-up, you could do that. Also, if it's sent to the grave by a card effect, you can add a Shaddoll monster from the deck to your hand. So if you are missing a light target, you can grab something like Kaios from the deck, and you can go into your Fusion Construct plays. So 3 Hedgehog, mandatory. And then I'm also playing 2 copies of Wendy. Unfortunately, she is a win, so I do not like playing her at 3 copies. If she was a dark or a light, that would be a different story. However, she is still really good. Essentially, you want her in the deck so that you can make some of your really powerful combos live. Her flip effect is you can special summon a Shaddoll from the deck in face-up or face-down defense position, except herself. And if she's sent to the grave by card effect, you could special summon a Shaddoll from your deck in face-down defense position. So you are able to special summon something like a Aerial, and that will allow you to continue on with your combos, which I'll show you later on. So Wendy is a really good card. And of course, 2 copies of Aerial. Again, it's a water type, but man, is it versatile. It is a level 4, so you can use it for rank 4 plays, like going into your Abyss Dweller. But on top of that, When it's flipped, you could target a banished Shaddoll monster and special summon it face up or in face down defense position, which is really great for comboing off. And if it's sent to the grave by card effect, you could target up to 3 cards in the graveyards and banish them. So in a graveyard-centric format like the one we're in right now, any deck that essentially uses the grave as a second hand will be hindered by that effect. I mean, if that resolves against something like Eldritch, it's pretty much game over, and it's going to allow you to snowball by taking away their advantage. So Ariel is really good in those instances, and that's why I recommend 2 copies. Really don't want to draw into her. Really just want her in the deck so you could special summon off Wendy. And to round out our Shaddoll monsters, I am playing the 1 Beast and 1 Kaios. Beast is great for another Shaddoll name, and also getting that extra draw when it's sent to the grave is pretty useful. Kaios is really only used in here for the light target. Its flip effect isn't the most relevant, and when it's sent to the grave, it can send a Shaddoll from the hand, from your hand to the grave. And if you do, all monsters you control gain attack and defense equal to the level of that monster. Blah blah blah. Like I mentioned, it is a light target. You really want it there so that you can go into your construct, and it is searchable. So that is why you do play the 1 of. And now for your extra light targets, I'm playing 3 Performage Trick Clown. This is a really, really good option because of the fact that it can recur itself from the grave, and it's a level 4, so you could go into your Abyss Dweller plays, and it's a light target. So you really want to see this in your opening hand so that you can continue to use Construct, and that's what makes Trick Clown really, really good, because it's essentially free material. And last but not least, I am playing 3 copies of DD Crow just to make sure that I have enough dark targets to make the allures live. But on top of that, DD Crow is still a really good card in its own right, being able to target a card in your opponent's grave and banish it, like I mentioned, with a lot of graveyard decks running around, or cards that you'd utilize the grave in general, like Virtual World. Being able to banish some of their materials can be the make or break in certain instances. And yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've used this against Ronin Totems, or, you know, things that would easily be a problem, and it's a dark target, so you gotta love it. And that's going to round out the monsters. Now I'm going to show off some of these spells. I am playing 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion, easily one of the strongest fusion spells in the game, allowing you to have a polymerization-like effect. You can fusion summon a Shaddoll Fusion monster from the extra deck by using cards from your Shaddolls from your hand or field as material, which is really good, but its second effect is where it shines. If you're forced to go second and you're facing down a monster that your opponent special summoned from the extra deck, you can use Shaddoll Fusion to use materials from your deck to make your fusion monster. So it essentially can create a free construct or a free window. And honestly, that is really good because you will get your free monster as well as trigger your Shaddolls engraved. So Shaddoll Fusion is really good. It's only balanced by the fact that it is a hard once per turn, so remember that. And then I am playing 3 copies of El Shaddoll Fusion, arguably even better than Shaddoll Fusion because of the fact that it's a quick play, so it can be used on your opponent's turn. If you're able to get it into the grave and get Construct into the grave, you can add it back, set it, and use it again on your opponent's turn. So it has added utility there. And like I mentioned, Shaddoll Fusion and this one are searchable off of Apkallon's effect when you normal summon the Gale Dogra. So these are searchable, and that's why no matter what, you don't want to have to search for it because you want to see it in your opening hand. But if you have to, it is an option. And then I am playing 2 copies of Super Polymerization. I really don't want to see 2 copies in my opening hand. It doesn't really do too much for you. Not to mention, you want to see some of your other fusion spells. They're just a little bit better. However, at being able to, since this is a control build, you want to be able to have cards like this that can help keep your opponent from establishing their own boards. And we are playing monsters in the extra deck that are of every type. So almost always will you have materials to be able to go into one of your extra deck monsters. And because of that, it has some great utility. Remember, you can fusion summon and your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this activation. So they're pretty much just forced to see some of their monsters be used as material, and there's not really much they can do about it. And like I mentioned a few times in the video, we are playing 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Consistency is key, and this is one of the strongest pieces of draw power and that you can play in this deck. You're playing so many Darks, the Hedgehog, the Squamata, the Crows. You are bound to be able to have at least one in your opening hand. And sometimes you need a decent amount of cards in order to get your plays going. And Allure of Darkness can really help to unclog that hand and get you access to some fresh cards. Now, what's great about Allure of Darkness is that it isn't once per turn. So you could just, if you have 2, you could just keep activating Allure of Darkness and just keep drawing cards. So it's really strong in that regard. And then for one powerful one of Foolish Burial, essentially it's able to trigger all of your Shaddolls. So it is a god card in that instance. And that's it for the spells. Now for the traps, I am playing 1 copy of Shaddoll Incarnation as well as 1 Shaddoll Schism. The Incarnation is useful for being able to banish itself and a Shaddol monster from your grave to change one face-down defense position monster you control face up. So that's really good at being able to hard flip your aerial on your first turn, allowing you to keep up with your combos. So that's why there is 1 in there. And the Schism is the newest addition to the deck, really broken during the main phase. You could fusion summon a Shaddoll fusion monster by banishing fusion materials listed on it from the field or grave. So this is great after you've already gotten comboed off and you have materials in the grave. You can use this on your opponent's turn to use some of those resources you already used in the grave and use it to make something like a Winda. That way you don't have to worry about bringing Winda on your own turn, because if you did have Winda on your turn, it would keep you from being able to special summon monsters. So you really want to have it towards the end of your combo anyway. And Shaddoll Schism essentially allows you to bypass her restriction by allowing you to make her last. So I really like this card, and you're able to add it to your hand pretty consistently, and you're able to get the Shaddoll Incarnation to the grave pretty easily. So yep, I'm playing 1 copy of each of those. And then, like I mentioned, this is a control deck, so I am playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment, just being able to prevent yourself from being blown out in general, especially if you are choosing to go first. You really don't want to get hit with cards like Lightning Storm or Evenly Matched. You want to make sure that your Winda sticks, so if someone does drop something on you that could be a hindrance, you could use the Judgment, pay half your life points, and I assure you it will be worth it to do so. So that's why I play 3 Solemn Judgment, but essentially these could be any other traps as well, from Solemn Strike to Crackdowns, Compulses, whatever you think would be useful in that instance. But I love having that additional protection, because usually if I'm able to go into an Abyss Dweller or in tandem with a Winda, and I have one of these set, I'm pretty golden at that point, and you are going to be in control of the game. So that's going to wrap it up for the main deck. Now to show off the extra deck, I am, of course, playing 3 copies of El Shaddoll Construct. Such a broken fusion monster, in my opinion. If it's special summoned, you could send a Shaddoll card from the deck to the grave, so any of your monsters, any of the spells and traps. And then, of course, another useful effect is that if it's sent to the grave, you can target a Shaddoll spell or trap in your grave and add it to your hand. So that's how you're going to be able to recycle some of your materials or some of your fusion spells if they have already been used. And you're constantly doing link summoning and things like that, so getting El Shaddoll Construct into the grave is not all that difficult. So 3 copies of Construct. And of course, I am playing 2 copies of Winda. Very rarely are you going to go into a 3rd copy. Usually 1 or 2 is able to hold it down. And she's amazing. Can't be destroyed by an opponent's card effects, but also each player can only special summon one monster that turn. And of course, if it's sent to the grave, you could target a Shaddoll spell or trap in the grave and add it to your hand. So it has recursion ability. Really, you want that floodgate-like effect of keeping your opponent from special summoning. That's why Shaddoll Schism is so good, because you can go into her after you've already comboed off, and now you're locking your opponent out of special summons. So she is very powerful. And the reason to play the deck, I am playing the 1 copy of Apkallone and the 1 copy of Shekanaga. Apkallone is really in here so that you can utilize it off of Gale Dogra, and so you could use it to search your fusions. And Shekanaga is also really good on its own when a special summon monster activates its effect. While you have a Shaddoll card in the hand, you can quick effect negate the activation, destroy that monster, and then send a Shaddoll card from your hand to the grave, triggering your Shaddolls and being able to combo further. So Shekanaga is also good in the event that you are really only stuck with maybe your Mathematician, which is also an Earth monster. You can then use it as fusion material to help you go into Shekanaga. So yeah, it gives added utility to your Mathematician, and that's why it's also good. Plus, it's an Earth monster. I am, of course, playing some of the other attributes. I'm playing 1 Grista, 1 Wendigo. It's really good to have options like these at your disposal. Right now, something like the bird up strategy is very, very detrimental to your ability to play the game. So having Wendigo means that your super polys can actually break their board by using their barrier statue as material for the super polymerization so that you can go into a Wendigo. So that is really nice. And of course, if you're playing fire decks like Salamangreat, Grista will pop up as well. I am playing 1 Xanathon of the Sky Prison. This one is really good at being able to prevent your opponent from special summoning monsters from the grave, and you could just get into this with 2 constructs. So still a very powerful floodgate. And continuing the theme of floodgates, you are playing 1 Abyss Dweller, locking off your opponent's graveyard effects. Like I mentioned, you're playing a ton of level 4s, so having access to Dweller is actually really easy to get into, and I'll show you how you can get into one in tandem with a Winda during the combo. And we are playing some powerful Link monsters, Cross Sheep and Shaddoll Construct. These essentially allow you to continue comboing off, and that's why they're in here. And then for some protection and OTKs, we are playing the Boral Sword and Apollosa. The deck is able to go into a lot of materials rather quickly, and sometimes you could just use those materials. If you're going turn 1, you could just go into an Apollosa using some of those extra cards, or if you're going turn 2 and you need to close out games, Boral Sword is also good for that as well. So guys, I'm not playing a side deck at the moment. It really is just tailored to your particular locals and metagame. I, of course, recommend cards like Ash Blossom, Droll and Lockbird, Nibiru, Lancia. Hits pretty much every deck. Please tailor your extra deck, your side deck, so that you are prepared to go second, because as a control deck, this one is really meant to just go first, so it can struggle going second in certain matchups. So thank you for sticking around. Now it is time for the combo portion of the video. Alright everyone, welcome to the combo portion of the video. I will just show you some of the bread and butter combos that make the deck so explosive. I'm going to show you a combo that involves the Shaddoll Fusion, the Trick Clown, and the Mathematician, or the Armageddon Knight. They both serve the same purpose. So this is a common hand. You are running 3 copies of each of these. Plus you have things like the Allure of Darkness, which will help you to see these cards and these combination of cards much more frequently. But yeah, so this is one of the combos that you can do. To start off, we will normal summon the copy of Mathematician, activate its effect, to then send a copy of Shaddoll Squamata. Squamata Engrave will trigger to send the Hedgehog, and the Hedgehog will add a Wendy to your hand. From there, you will play the Shaddoll fusion using the Wendy and the Trick Clown to go into your first fusion summon, and that is going to be your copy of El Shaddoll Construct. Now, Chainlink 1 Construct, Chainlink 2 Wendy, Chainlink 3 Trick Clown. You will then special the Trick Clown. Use the Wendy to set a copy of Shaddoll Ariel from the deck to face down defense position on your side of the field, and you will use Construct to send a copy of the Shaddoll Incarnation. Now that the links have resolved, you can then use the Construct and the Mathematician to go into a copy of Cross Sheep. From there, you can use the copy of Construct that is in your grave to then add the Shaddoll fusion for a follow-up back to your hand. Now you could use the Shaddoll Incarnation from the grave, banishing it and the Construct to then flip up this copy of Shaddoll Ariel. From there, Ariel will trigger, special summoning the Construct that was banished to a zone that the Cross Sheep points to. You will then Chainlink 1 Construct, Chainlink 2 Cross Sheep. Cross Sheep will special summon the Squamata. Construct will then send a copy of your Schism to grave. And now from here, you are going to link summon your Cross Sheep, Construct, and your Squamata into a copy of Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess, and your Construct Engrave will add the Shaddoll Schism back to your hand. You will then set the Schism, and then use the Ariel and the Trick Clown to Exceed Summon into an Abyss Dweller, which I usually put in defense position. Now, on your opponent's main phase, you will go into your Schism, and then we can banish, let's say, the Squamata and Hedgehog from the grave to then special summon your Winda. So now you have the negates from Apollosa. You are going to be able to detach to then lock your opponent's graveyard from activated effects. And of course, you have the Winda for the special summon lock. So this is just one of the many combos that you can use to be really explosive and provide a lot of protection and negation from your board. I'm going to go ahead and show you one more. All right, everyone, so this is going to be combo number 2, utilizing Gale Dogra and showing how you can get out of some bricky situations. So right now, this will require the Hedgehog, Squamata, and Gale Dogra. As you can see, no light targets, no fusion spell. However, we will be able to solve that relatively easily. You'll start by normaling the Gale Dogra, activate its effect to pay 3,000, and send your copy of App Cologne to the grave. From here, App Cologne will trigger, which will add your fusion and lets you send the Shaddoll Hedgehog to the grave. The Hedgehog will trigger, allowing you to add the Shaddoll Kaios to your hand. And now you have the light target as well as the fusion. Go ahead and fire off the El Shaddoll fusion using the Squamata and Kaios to, of course, go into your first copy of Construct. From here, the Construct and the Squamata will trigger. The Construct and the Squamata will let you send the Wendy, and the Construct will let you send the Incarnation. Wendy Engrave will trigger, allowing you to set the Shaddoll Ariel in face-down defense position. And from here, we will start to do similar combos to the first one. Use the Gale Dogra and the Construct to go into your Cross Sheep. Your Construct Engrave will allow you to add the fusion back to your hand, which you can then set to your side of the field. And then from here, you can banish the Incarnation and Construct to flip up the copy of Ariel. Aerial will trigger, targeting the banished construct, and special summoning it to a zone that the cross sheep points to. The construct and the cross sheep will trigger. The construct will send your copy of Schism, and the cross sheep will then special summon a copy of Squamata. From here, you could use the Aerial and the Squamata to link summon, and because they're both flip monsters, they will link summon into your copy of the Shaddoll Construct Link Monster. From here, you could use the Link Monster's effect to fusion summon, using itself and Construct, to, you guessed it, go into another copy of Construct. The Construct Engrave will then add the Schism back to your hand, which you can set on your side of the field. And the construct you just summoned will go ahead and send a copy of Beast, letting you draw a random card. Alright, so that's your hand. Alright, and from here, you can actually pass turn. You can activate the Schism on your opponent's main phase, banishing the Beast as well as the Wendy. And then that will let you go into your copy of Winda. Since it was summoned to a zone that the cross sheep is pointing to, you can then special summon the Squamata. Now, this is going to be your board. If something happens to your Winda, you can actually use the Shaddoll fusion to use the Squamata and the cross sheep to go into a Shekanaga because it's an earth monster. Or you could simply use the Squamata and the construct to go into another Winda. And then from there, the Shaddoll Construct Engrave will actually let you add the Shaddoll Fusion back to your hand. So guys, even with a bricky hand, you were still able to go double Winda, which is pretty incredible. I hope that you learned something and that I was helpful. And if you're a fan of this type of content, please show your support by liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.